And then there were 15. That's the number of Republicans currently vying for their party's nomination for president. Two recently dropped out. The Democratic field includes former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, once expected to easily win the nomination. A combination of missteps and a surprisingly strong challenge from self-proclaimed socialist and U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders has left her path to the nomination less certain. Later, we'll talk with three journalists covering the campaign, but first, for more on the candidates and the issues, we turn to our newsroom and CCTV's Jim Spellman. And Jim, here in the United States, we've had what's been called the Summer of Trump. That's, of course, a reference to real estate mogul Donald Trump, whose style is very blunt, very controversial, but he's rocketed to the top of the Republican field. But it's not just Trump. I mean, we have seen other outsiders doing well. I mean, are there not more of them there?
Yeah, I mean, these outsiders are really leading the way, led by a very wealthy outsider, as you mentioned, Donald Trump. We've made it through the summer of Trump. Will this now be the fall of Trump? Will Donald Trump be able to maintain his lead? Here in the U.S., the two main parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, use primary elections to choose their candidates before they face each other in the general election in November 2016. So let's look at the latest numbers for the Republican frontrunners. According to a Pew Research poll released Sunday, Donald Trump is at 25%, down a few points from his high earlier this summer. Then Ben Carson at 16%, and tied at 8% each, Carly Fiorina and Marco Rubio. About half of the voters surveyed are supporting outsiders. Donald Trump, as you mentioned, he's of course a real estate mogul and TV personality. Ben Carson is a retired brain surgeon. Carly Fiorina is a former CEO who has never held public office before. Marco Rubio is a sitting U.S. senator. Mainstream candidates like former Florida Governor Jeb Bush and the current New Jersey Governor Chris Christie were once considered likely frontrunners. They've struggled to gain traction in this election cycle. Now let's have a look at the Democrats. Former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton, she is the frontrunner, and she still holds a considerable lead over her Democratic challengers, but she's facing some competition. According to a nationwide USA Today poll last month, Hillary Clinton leads Democrats with 41%, followed by Senator Bernie Sanders with 23%. And even though he hasn't actually entered the race, Vice President Joe Biden gets about 20%. Hillary Clinton has been dealing with questions about how she handled some issues while she was Secretary of State. Bernie Sanders is giving her a considerable challenge from the left and gaining a lot of grassroots supporters as well. Biden is expected to announce whether he will enter the race sometime in the next week or so. He has been grieving the death of his son, who died back in May. His decision either way will undoubtedly change the race. Anand?
Jim, a number of hot-button issues have come up during the campaign. Take us just through a few of them and where the candidates stand on them.
Well, let's start with gun violence and how the candidates reacted to last week's mass shooting in Oregon. As a political issue, gun control becomes a hot-button subject nearly every time there's a mass shooting, but it doesn't often lead to substantial change. Now, both Donald Trump and Ben Carson suggested that arming teachers might prevent such tragedies. On Facebook, Carson wrote, quote, "I never saw a body with bullet holes that was more devastating than taking the right to arm ourselves away." To some people that seems outlandish, but it's a message that is bound to resonate with some primary Republican voters. Now, on the Democrat side, Hillary Clinton has released a set of gun control proposals. She wants gun manufacturers and dealers to be open to lawsuits from victims of gun violence. And she says, if elected, she will use executive action to expand background checks for prospective gun buyers. Immigration has become a major issue on the Republican side, largely because Donald Trump has made this a centerpiece of his campaign. He's vowing to build a wall across the border between the U.S. and Mexico, though he says it will have a really nice door in a very Donald Trump way. That's for legal immigration. He wants, though, to clamp down on anyone coming across, and he says he will deport immigrants, especially criminals. His message has resonated with supporters, but it could end up hurting him with Latino voters. Trump has also made international trade an issue in this race, claiming he'll be a great negotiator for the U.S. Not exactly clear what that means, but he did react to the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement by calling it a, quote, terrible deal. On the left, Bernie Sanders also criticized it, saying it was a giveaway to big business at the expense of U.S. workers. A big question will be how Hillary Clinton reacts to the deal. She was a supporter when she was Secretary of State, but with many unions and therefore voters potentially opposing it, she has yet to give her full endorsement as a candidate at this point.